Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blenderhead, your buddy. Blender HD on Twitter. You can follow me there. And this is the show, as you should know already, that we go over a little bit about yesterday's slate. Talk a little bit about today's slate. We're talking about baseball, right? No NBA. I see that NBA, people in, people out. Who knows what's going on? They're playing a game in the afternoon now. Who knows what's going on in the NBA? But MLB is in full force. We're finally getting like real slates. I'm not saying that the slates, the first week and a half weren't real, but 5 game, 6 game slates, like, okay. It's doable, sure, 7 games. Oh, but now we're getting like 12 game slates, 10 game slates, 14 game slates. What it should be, right? So I see you guys in the YouTube chat. I like my YouTube people because you keep my apple juice cold in the morning. Apple juice time. Hit those thummy thumbs. Hit the thumbs up button. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live in the morning. Subscribe. Maybe there's some new people that have not subscribed to the channel. You never know. I see you guys in the chat. Gerald Miller, Chandler Cannon, Jupocalypse, Frederick Dute, Travis Ratliff, Shane Beaver, Mr. Meat Plow. Of course, Mr. Plow's here. Jeward and Tony P and Matt Mears. I see you guys in there. But yesterday, kind of the chalk got there yesterday, right? Kind of, right? Pretty much Oakland was the chalk. Like in the beginning, was anyone going to score more than 3 runs or something? Like in the beginning of the slate. But pretty much the chalk got there. I mean, Glasnow, crushed. He was the highest owned pitcher. He crushed. Freddie Peralta, that's the chalk SB2. He crushed. I mean, if you played Inoa, Inoa was fine also. He was cheaper, right? He got 29. Freddie Peralta got 33. Greinke throws like 70-mile-an-hour pitches. I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure how he ever gets it done. But whatever. He wasn't that owned. Sandy Alcantara. People got his first 2. If he went by his first 2 starts, he's going to win the Cy Young. But he's Sandy Alcantara, and he was like 8,500 or something. I don't know why anyone played him, but I stacked against him. That's what I did. But yeah, the chalk, and then the Oakland stack, right? Oakland. Pretty much the chalk yesterday was Oakland. You got the A's. You got the Astros. Depending on the site, it was a little bit different on both sites, but primarily there were three chalk teams: the A's, the Yankees, and the Astros. Right? Then you mix in some one guys here and whatever. Like I think Ohtani on Draftkings was a little, as a one-off, he was a little underpriced. We take a look here. Right, we had that Stanton news when we didn't know if he was going to play. Right, earlier he was possibly sitting out, but then he was warming up in the outfield, so we knew he was playing. But yeah, so the chalks. I mean, you didn't have to go. You didn't need the chalk. Obviously, the Yankees didn't fully get there. I mean, pretty much needed Higgs. I mean, the only guy that hit 2 home runs yesterday, Kyle Higashioka, right? You didn't have him in your Yankee stack, it didn't matter. So it's not like the Yankees really didn't get there because Torres had 2, right? Torres, Odor had 5, which for him, I guess, is better than 0. Judge 4, Urshela 7. So maybe, yeah, the Yankees really didn't get there other than Higashioka. He was 8% owned. Oakland got there, pretty much no matter. I mean, the chalk way to go would be like Laureano, Canha. I mean, look at this: 20%, 70%, 15%. Sean Murphy is a catcher; he hit a home run. Right, Jed Lowry had 20 points. Yeah, so like the 5-man Oakland. A 3-man to 5-man Oakland got there. Houston, on the other hand, Astros not so much. Correa was fine. Tucker was okay at 10. But like Alvarez put up a donut at 20% ownership. Brantley went yard. Altuve 2 didn't get there. Bregman 2. So now the 5-man Oakland stack, the 5-man Houston stack didn't get. You need like one-offs, maybe 2 guys, something like that. But still mostly the chalk. I mean, like the A's were chalk. The Glasnow, Peralta, and the A's. And if you had that plus enough points elsewhere, you had a good chance of taking down something. I went in a little bit different directions. Now I did have some A's, I did have some Astros, and I did have some Yankees, but I was focused primarily on the Marlins Braves game. So my biggest exposure yesterday was Marlins, Braves, Nationals, and who else? And the Brewers. Then I mixed in everything else. So I still had A's. I still had, because I was playing on FanDuel. So I was playing 4-3-1s, 4-4s, 4-3-1s. So I still had, but just not as much. So I was focusing on stacks like Acuna, Ozuna, Freeman, Albies, like the Braves. And then they were owned on FanDuel, but not as high owned as I thought. I think we had Freddie Freeman projected owned at like 24% yesterday, and he came in at 14% on FanDuel. But that's the main reason, like stacking the Braves. Yeah, I thought Freeman would be chalky, so it's like, okay, I don't want to play. Don't necessarily want to play Freeman as a one-off in like an Oakland stack or something like that. So it's like, okay, well, how about if I just play like people are going to be playing Alvarez, if people are going to be playing like Laureano, if people are going to be playing like paying up there for outfield, it's like, why not play Ronald Acuna? Why not? Why not do it? And then the Marlins, of course, no one ever owns the Marlins, and they actually projected extremely well in the bat, right, against Denoa, who's a higher variance pitcher, and they're getting a ballpark upgrade in Atlanta. So, so Corey Dickerson, Starling Marte, who finally his price is coming down. He was priced up for no apparent reason. Garrett Cooper, right? I had all those guys. I had all the Marlins. And then I thought the Nationals. I think people don't realize like they're getting people back. Like for the first time, they have Josh Bell, they have Kyle Schwarber in the lineup. So I thought people. I mean, it's not like they were underpriced, but I thought they have a better lineup now than they have the first week and a half of the season. So I decided to take advantage of that, and they didn't do that badly, right? Robles was leading off of the Nationals. He was 1.6% owned on FanDuel, right? Like the Nationals were barely owned on FanDuel. I mean, Soto was owned. Soto was like 12%. But that's one of those other things. Like if people are paying up for Yordan Alvarez or Ohtani or these A's, right? If they're paying up for those guys, they're paying up for Stanton or Judge. Like what could I do that's different than that? While still playing Glasnow, right? While still playing Glasnow and Peralta on DraftKings or something. Well, people are playing up for Yankees or A's and Houston, right? Like, well, Acuna's there, Soto's there, right? Trout, right? Trout's there. I mean, there are multiple ways to go, especially on a 12-game slate. Turned into an 11-game slate because the Mets game was postponed. But to me, that's how you should be thinking. Because you could see here, even in the mini home run record, whatever, the $7.62, whatever DraftKings does with these numbers, who cares? Just make it $7. Let's make it easy. $8. I don't care. Don't make these little cutesy contests. Just make it an $8 contest and run it every day. What's wrong with that? But you can see here with just exposures, like most of the sharper players, they don't just go all in on batters. Now, pitchers is a different story. Like we have here, like RBX88 kind of flipped this. Where we go? Uticow kind of flipped the script. Like you can tell construction is just by pitchers. Because look here at the pitchers, like Uticow went heavy on like Garrett Cole, Glasnow lineups. And in order to make those, you had to have cheap stacks. But he still played A's. So it's like, what stacks could he have had? Right, Vogelback, he was cheap. Right, Van Meter, and Andrews, he was okay. Bottom of the order. Cole Calhoun, the Diamondbacks. Yeah, I had a bunch of the Diamondbacks yesterday because they were cheap. Kane, bottom of the order. Piscotty, Travis Russell, Milwaukee. Carpenter, okay. You have to find some cheap stuff. You know, get those two guys in. Mazzara, right? Okay. Tigers. Candelario, okay. Ahmed, okay. Now I see how he's He's making like kind of like Detroit stacks, Blue Jays, just a random one-off catcher for the Blue Jays. Rowdy Telkes, they had some Blue Jays also, even with Cole. So probably not in the Cole lineups. Right? I could take a look here. So that's what I'm looking for. Brett Phillips. Yeah, he was how much cheap stuff can he throw in so he can make these Cole Glasnow lineups? Now he didn't get there because of it. I mean, Cole put up 29 points, but that doesn't mean anything when you have Peralta putting up 31 and then Noah putting up like tons. Alex Cobb put up a bunch of points. So like 29 points out of a 10K plus pitcher ain't gonna cut it. So it's kind of hard in results DB to see like the stack percentages because you just see individual players, but you could do it. You go through. You take like the one main guy or something and you say like how many stacks of this team. Like I look at Soto. So it looked like everyone, I mean, had some Soto. Got Soto there. Like Trey Turner. Okay, so the Nationals. Trey Turner was 8%. Soto was 9% on DraftKings. Going through all of this. This is what I do in the morning. I mean, this is the first time I'm looking at this, right? Of course, I pulled out a couple of people. I go, well, who placed high enough and that 150 max? And like, okay, let me take a look at a bunch of these people. All right, is there anything that they did that I didn't do? And baseball is a little bit different because I'm primarily going by stacks. But yeah, you tell me that Torres is 20%. Like Torres, I didn't mind as a one-off because he's shortstop eligible. So like, there's not many shortstops. But these outfielders, like playing Jordan Alvarez as a one-off, or Laureano, Canhal leading off. I don't know, just looking through here. I don't know why Jazz Chisholm was 10% owned on DraftKings. People just punted. People just thought I can't get Torres, so I'm just gonna pay cheap. I mean, because he wasn't like that cheap. He was like maybe 3,200. It's not like he was 2,000. I mean, I had Jazz Chisholm, but I mean, he was in Marlins stacks. I wouldn't have expected him to get nearly 11% ownership. I was just going down here saying, checking it out. What did you guys do in the YouTube chat? I don't know. Nate Bradshaw asks, similar to basketball, are you more likely to jam in late news in baseball? I don't know what really late news there would be. Like yesterday, we had that Stanton thing. I'm in GPP. I'm more likely to lean towards risk when it's worth it. Okay, that's a good way to put it. When it's worth it. So like yesterday, Stanton, we got the tweets or whatever, and maybe he doesn't play. He's in the lineup. He's in the official. He's in the one they announced lineup, but maybe he's going to sit out this game. So people don't know. So you know what people end up doing? They go, I don't know if I can play Stanton. Now, nothing's in the DraftKings or FanDuel screens. So, like, unless you knew about that tweet, if you knew about that news, there's nothing that you're changing, right? Because you wouldn't even know. It says that he's batting second. It's in the apps. There's no tag. There's no nothing. So you just have to think in terms of how are people going to get scared off of that type of stuff. What they say in the stock market, like be fearful when people are greedy and be greedy when people are fearful. Like that's kind of what I do in DFS. So like yesterday we had like the Seattle Baltimore game that was questionable because of the rain. Most people overreact to delays. Okay, most people, right? They say if it's 10 minutes before lock and they say, oh, blah, 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 blah is going to be delayed. Not postponed, delayed. Most people get off of it. You'll see the ownership dip crazy in that game. Even if they get a late start. That's, to me, I listen to Roth primarily to see the chances of something happening that the field is not considering enough. It's the same type of probabilistic thinking you do with with ownership versus projection. The same type of thing. So, like, there was the game last week with Lance Lynn. Remember that White Sox game? Where Lance, and then we had the Barrios, Lynn, and people wanted to play Lynn. But it's like, that game's in trouble. It's going to rain for like 2 to 2.5 hours at game time. And it's the type of thing where if they start the game, they're going to have a big delay, and maybe the pitchers are gone. But if they delay it now and then late start it 2.5 hours from now, they'll be fine. So that's what Roth said. Said it's most likely if they delay it at the start, they could get this game. They could be played perfectly clean 2.5 hours from now. Are they going to wait 2.5 hours? Well, that's not up to him, right? That's up to the teams. That's up to the whatever. That has nothing to do with him looking at the weather. So, like, that's the information. Take what you want with it. So I'm just like, well, if they're going to late start and it's going to be fine. Lance Lynn is, to me, the best projected pitcher on the slate with the highest upside. So give it to me. And his ownership got cut in half easily, just once they announced the game was being delayed. Because people don't even look at the weather report. They just see game is delayed. Oh, got to get him out of lineups. Got to get all these guys out of my lineups. It's like, dude, they can play this game 2.5 hours from now. So people get scared of it. Now, yesterday with the Seattle-Baltimore game, it was a very similar situation. My attitude is that it was 50-50 on whether or not they're even going to play after a late start. Right after, okay, it's going to be announced as a delay before lock. Maybe they play 2 hours from now, and maybe they don't. But then I take a look, and I go, it's a 12-game slate. I wanted to play Seattle in Baltimore. I wanted to play, who was pitching for the Baltimore? Kramer? I mean, some crappy pitchers. And I like taking road teams in Baltimore, especially when they're cheap. And the Mariners were cheap. But there's 11 other games on the slate. How great is that spot? For hitters, the pitchers I had no interest in. With Justice Sheffield and whoever, Kramer, whatever his name is. I wasn't interested in them. And then I looked at the projections for Seattle and Baltimore, and not that they're popping or anything. It's like, okay, now people are not going to be playing this game. Yes. If I wanted to play a Seattle stack yesterday, it would be you owned, right? We could take a look. Like, we could look like Marmalejos or whatever. He's 2.53% owned, right? Who else is in the Seattle lineup? I don't even know who's in the Seattle lineup. Haniger, 3.97% owned. So it's not even that low owned. And some people still had some Seattle stacks, right? But I have to think in terms of is it worth it? Or maybe if you're playing 100 lineups, maybe you play them in 5. Maybe if you want to take a shot, sure. But to me, is it worth it? I'm playing Diamondbacks. I'm playing Marlins. I'm playing under-owned Nationals. Like, I'm already playing stuff that's kind of off the board as it is. Do I need what's the worst thing that happens? The game plays. Oh, that doesn't mean anything. It's not like basketball. Like, you got to jam these guys in. And the ownership didn't even get to be that low. You told me these guys are going to be under 1% owned as a stack. Maybe then I'd take a shot. But no, still ended up 3-4% owned with zeros because obviously the game didn't play. But was it worth it on a 12-game slate? A 3-game slate? 4-game slate? Okay, then I'd take a shot. How many other options do I have? Right? You look at that game, and then you look at there's 2 aces pitching in 2 other games. It's like, do I take the team against like the best pitcher in baseball, or do I take a team one of the teams in the game that may be rained out, and maybe you take a shot in one of the teams that's rained out? To me, it's about opportunity cost. The Lance Lynn example, I thought the risk was acceptable, and I think Kevin Roth is a great weather forecaster for baseball. He has to project. He has to predict what's going to happen in one city block. He's not going to be right 100% of the time. Of course not. And then, of course, he can't control what the teams do. I mean, he even said, after they postponed the game, they're like, if they would have just waited a half an hour, they would have been fine. They postponed it, and then he looks at the radar and goes, they could have played right now and been fine. So there's no control over that. But I like looking at the context. and seeing if people are going to overreact to certain things. So to me, that's the equivalent of jamming in late news, because there's really no jamming in late news in baseball. What we had the Rodon right yesterday. Oh, Rodon got scratched for an illness, and Keuchel was going to pitch. Does that change anything? I didn't necessarily want to stack the Indians against Rodon, and I don't want to stack him against Keuchel. I'm not saying Keuchel's a great pitcher, but he's a ground ball pitcher. He typically doesn't get blown up. So what am I changing? Am I going to play Keuchel now against the Indians? No, probably not. Compared to Peralta at that price. So it doesn't really change anything. The only time it would change is if it was Giolito and then him getting scratched and some scrub from the minor leagues put in, then you may look at the batter pricing and go, oh, the Indians are underpriced now because they were priced down for facing an ace pitcher, and now they're too cheap. I mean, it's that type of situation. Because Keuchel was normally priced. It's like it's not like, oh, Rodon is out and now Keuchel's minimum price because they just left him. No, he was like 7,700 or 7,100 or whatever. So it's not like basketball where a guy that's 4,000 comes into someone's role and should be 8,000. You don't see that in baseball. Yeah, I think I answered Frederick. I think I answered your question about handling games that are very questionable due to weather. And scramble for last minute swapping. I scramble more for swapping when it comes to having, like some of the late game lineups not being in. Like I'm building Dodgers stacks and I'm assuming that AJ Pollock is in, right? And then it turns out Chris Taylor's in. Like those are the swaps. That's typically what I'm swapping. I've already planned out what I'm going to do with the weather stuff. Most of the time, if a game gets postponed before lock, I mean, I just don't have them in my player pool to begin with. I could just X those guys out and run it again. But you have to weigh how much is it worth? 12-game slate. Teams that don't project poorly, but don't project great. You're playing them because they're going to be under. You want to play. I wanted to play Seattle because I thought they would be under-owned as it is. But it's not like they were in a great spot. It's like, okay, here's anything could happen. It's baseball. But it's like I could say anything could happen. It's baseball to like 6 other spots. So instead of playing 5-6% Seattle lineups, I just say screw it. I X out that and I just give more to the Marlins, give more to the Diamondbacks, right? Give more to the Nationals. Because the Seattle stack is cheap, so you have to go to the cheap guys. So just give more than that. So what's the, oh my God, they play and Seattle scores 8 runs and I should have played them. It's baseball. The chances of that happening versus the game being postponed and 10% of my lineups are dead. Do I need 10% of my lineups dead when I could already play stacks that are 3% owned as it is? So that's how I view it. Doesn't mean you have to view it that way. If I'm already playing off the board stuff, then why do I have to continue playing? Okay, well, here's an off the board thing that's even risky to even get. I may get zeros. It's like, why even bother? Let's see. Brett Booth, did I over leverage? That baseball, you can't even think in terms of over or under leverage. You're almost always you're stacking. It's all you can't. I see the question, Brett. You can't go by cumulative ownership. You can't you can normally not really go. That's just a very blunt guide. You have to think in terms of in MLB, lineups are way more correlated than in most other sports. Maybe not League of Legends. And maybe not NHL. NHL is about the same. So like when you say 110 pwn projected ownership with a 4-4. Like I only need on FanDuel. I would just need three figures. Pitcher ownership, stack ownership of this 4, and stack ownership of that 4. Because if Mike Trout's in the lineup, it's more likely that Ohtani's in that lineup, or more likely that Walsh is in that lineup. Take a look at the A's. Any lineup with Canha is much more likely to have Chapman and Laureano and other A's in it, Olsen. So you can't just say, well, this guy's 24% owned, and that guy's 18% owned, and this guy's 12% owned. Like, they're like, no, but if they're all on the same team, the likelihood of those people being together in a lineup is way higher than in a sport like NBA or even in football. But NFL, you get some, like if Tyreek Hill's in the lineup and Patrick Mahomes, like that, can't just go, oh, he's 12% Patrick Mahomes, 18% Tyreek Hill, and 20% Travis Kelce. Like, they're more likely to be together. So it's not just it's not like two receivers at 20%. So like, oh, 10%, like a mix has both of them in it. It's like, no, it's more likely to be more than that because people play correlative lineups. It's the same thing in baseball. So to me, you don't think in terms of like, oh, well, if I multiply all these A's together and then put in Glasnow and Peralta and then I should have a unique lineup. And then you go and you look and you're 5-3 with those two pitchers are duplicated 8 times. Your Houston, Oakland lineup. And you go, how did that happen? I should have a unique lineup. No, it's more likely that these 5 guys, you take the top 5 hitters from Oakland and you put them together with Yordan Alvarez. And I mean, yeah, you're gonna have the same lineup. Because those A's are more likely to be together with one another. So you can't treat their ownership individually. You have to treat the stack. What's the aggregate ownership of the stack? What's the average ownership of the stack? That's the figure that I care about, not the individual pieces. The only time I care about individual ownership is if I'm going to be playing players individually. I'm playing a 5-man stack with 3 one-offs, and I'm playing a chalk 32% one-off for no apparent reason. Like, then I care about it. Jerome Lewis asks, Blender, did you double stud Cole Glasnow lineups? No, I didn't play on DraftKings. I've been playing on FanDuel primarily. For GPP. They've cheaper, if they're both these sites are going to be running like such top heavy payout structures. And in baseball, I prefer to play multi-entry rather than like, I'm going to build 3 lineups, like that type of thing. I just prefer to build 100. So if I'm going to build 100, do I want to pay $18 an entry or do I want to play $4 an entry? Even though the field sizes are bigger on FanDuel, the payout structures are both. FanDuel's a little bit more top heavy, but DraftKings is pretty top heavy as it is. Like when 6th place is $1,000. I mean, like, way too top heavy. But if I'm going to do that, if I'm going to build 100 lineups, I'll do it in a $3 or $4 contest than an $18 contest for GPP. So that's the main reason. It has nothing really anything else. And obviously now with the multi-positional eligibility, like I'm just experimenting with like leaving money on the table with stack combinations just to get a sense, because I never focused that much on FanDuel before. DraftKings, I know. So DraftKings, I don't feel like there's anything different this year that may be a slightly bigger edge. I also feel that on FanDuel, they tend to attract maybe a little bit softer user base. I could definitely tell that in cash games. I could absolutely tell that in cash games. Like MLB cash on DraftKings is, I mean, it's very rare for me to say like, oh, is it pointless? Is there an edge there? It's the answer. The answer may be there is none. FanDuel, I'm fine with. FanDuel, I get head-to-heads taken. I take a look at their lineups and I go, I hope you keep on taking them, even if I lose that day. So I've been putting more emphasis on FanDuel. I've never for 5.5 years of playing DFS. I'm almost coming up on. It'll be in October. It'll be 6 years. I played primarily in DraftKings because that was where I started, and I played soccer there. FanDuel has soccer, but their product sucks. So I didn't focus on FanDuel. That's why I can still play the $1 and $2 games on FanDuel. So I didn't have as much volume over the course of 5.5 years. Maybe I've been leaving money on the table, so I'm seeing. Play more in FanDuel. I'm going where the money is. Going where the easiest money is. And maybe that's on FanDuel. So that's what I'm doing. Jacob Calloway asks, question with a one-off player pool curation. Are you generally looking for high home run upside? I guess. Sometimes you're playing a guy just because they fit. Sometimes that's what it is. Sometimes in order to get these two stacks in, let's say you're playing a 4-3-1 or something on FanDuel. Like the only way to get this 4-3 in with an expensive 4-3 is you need to punt, at shortstop with a $2,200 shortstop. You have Jazz Chisholm there, and there's your one-off. Sometimes it's that. Sometimes if you're making, like a 5-man stack lineup on DraftKings and you're playing like an expensive pitcher, maybe your second baseman has to be, just like, oh, it's a one-off. It's a one-off, then just name some crappy second baseman, right? Some low-hitting, 8th-hitting second, I guess I'm playing $3,000 whoever. Like, you could do that. That's perfectly fine. I'm more likely to have someone as a one-off that could get value in one swing of the bat. Yeah, sure, okay. But there are lineups that you can make that you don't need that. If it makes the lineup work. I mean, we do the same thing in any other sport. Let's see. Brett Booth says, I read somewhere as a strategy to limit one-offs to under 20% ownership, to use it as a leverage point. Yesterday, I tried to fit in Soto that way. Low projected ownership power with the projection. Yeah, I mean, I did that also. The reason with the one-offs, okay, understand why you're doing that by why playing high-owned one-offs is typically a bad, I say the word typically a bad GPP strategy for large field GPPs. Understand why. It's not about the batter. It's about the stack. Okay? So typically the one-off guy is also related to the stack. So if the Boston Red Sox are chalk and JD Martinez is 26% owned, well, Devers is owned and Bogarts is owned and Verdugo is owned. Vasquez at catcher or something, or Kiki Hernandez, whatever. Let's say the Red Sox are chalk. I'm just making it up, right? The Red Sox are chalk, and JD Martinez on an 11-game slate is 26% owned. Well, if JD Martinez gets there, it's more likely that the stack gets there. So if you're not playing the Red Sox stack in that lineup, why are you playing a 20? Why are you playing the highest owned one-off from the team that's the chalk? You're building a lineup with whoever, right? You're playing a Astros lineup. Well, your Astros lineup is going to lose to the Red Sox lineup if the Red Sox put up 10 runs today. And who's going to be the most contributive to put up those 10 runs in the Red Sox lineup? JD Martinez. So why do you want him as a one-off in your lineup? You're going to lose to the Red Sox stack. So that's what it really means. I mean, also due to the fact that it's baseball and within 4 or 5 at-bats, anything could happen. So why are you playing a 26% owned guy when Juan Soto could be sitting there at 7%, right? I mean, like that also works. But I don't like playing the highest owned player in the highest owned stack as a one-off. Because that means I'm not playing the stack. I'll play it in a stack. I'll play the highest owned stack with him, sure. I'm not going to play him as a one-off. More likely than not. Doesn't mean never. Typically. But that's the main reason. The win condition of that lineup, that Astros lineup that you make, is is them outscoring the Red Sox on that day. And if that happens, most likely JD Martinez doesn't have a big game. So why the hell are you putting him in your lineup? Especially when he's going to be the highest owned. I mean, like, you have to think in those terms. That's relative value. That's thinking in terms of leverage. It's not exact leverage, but How do I get the most relative value with this lineup? If I'm not playing the chalk Red Sox stack, I'm getting relative value by getting the better stack, and the Red Sox are doing poorly. Not the Red Sox putting up 9 runs and your stack putting up 11 runs. You want the Red Sox. If the Red Sox stack is 18% aggregate ownership, like super chalk, you want them to put up 1 run. You want them to die. That eliminates a fifth of the lineups in the contest, and you don't have any of it. Now your stack doesn't need to put up 15 runs to win. It needs to put up less. People don't think of that second thing. People look too linearly. They go, okay, the Red Sox are going to be chalk. I'm going to play the Nationals, right? And then someone goes to you, say, well, the Red Sox have a 6-run implied total. The Nationals have a 4-run implied total. You really think the Nationals are going to put up more runs than the Red Sox? I'd like, it's not about more. I'm not predicting outcomes. All I know is that as the Nationals put up more runs and the Red Sox put up less runs, I make more points. So my national stack doesn't have to put up 15 runs to win. The less that let's say the Red Sox were chalk and the Astros were chalk, and there are 3 teams that are kind of chalky. Like, dude, my national stack could put up 7 runs and win. Well, how is that possible on a 12-game slate? Well, the 3 chalk stacks don't, right? All that ownership is there, and if those teams put up 2 runs, all those lineups are pretty much dead. So how many runs do I need out of my lineup? I don't need 12. Maybe I win with 7. I win a 4-man stack, 7 runs. It's a low-scoring slate, and I win. But this is not about predicting outcomes. It's predicting what the field's going to do and how you could get the most amount of relative value. The same thing if I'm playing the chalk stack and I look at the chalk picture and I go, well, I think Glasnow is, the best projected pitcher on the slate. But what happens if Glasnow fails at 58% ownership? How can I get relative value out of this chalk 8-stack lineup? Well, I'll play Garrett Cole. I'll play Peralta on FanDuel, right? He wasn't as owned. So you didn't have to pay that down over there. What is my win condition with this lineup? And you can play multiple win conditions. This lineup has Glasnow with a different stack. This one has Oakland with a different pitcher. You can do that. Frederick Duke asks, do you use lineup HQ range of outcome settings? No. The only reason you use that is if you need to get more diversification. Why don't I want to just trust the projections? You're overthinking things. Josh Hunter, is the RG stack leverage tool your primary means of researching projected stack ownership? Yeah, you take a look at ownership. Yeah. I would look at that. You could just look at the ownership in lineup HQ. You could just look at it. Oh, these batters are going to go team by team. And you go, oh, okay. Well, this guy's 24% owned. His team is probably owned. Keith Espinoza, when playing 2 sports on the same day, is it still okay to have 10% in each sport so that you have 20% of your bankroll in play on a certain day? Does this not violate Kelly? I don't think it matters. I would think it's 2 different things. It's just a matter of risk tolerance. I don't think that granular in terms of my bankroll. I'm playing 2 sports on the same day. What should it matter? That's why when it comes to like cash games, I just assign a bankroll. Like what I do this year, $20,000. I take 10% of my bankroll and I go, this is for cash games for this sport. And that's it. And that's bankroll for cash games. 20,000 for NBA, right? Whatever 10% is at the time. And that lasts for the whole season. So I can win a GPP, but it's still like my cash bankroll is right here. Maybe then I add to it, maybe. But then I don't have to worry about things like that. It's like, well, how much are you playing on a specific day? Well, who cares? What does it matter? Oh. Any more questions in the YouTube chat? Gonna be a short show today. Short show today. Eli's in the producing, so give a thumbs up for him, right? Thummy thumbs. If you want to get all these tools for MLB, you could always click on the link in the description, get $10 off your first month at RotoGrinders. Yeah, short show. Answer some questions. You can go to theoryofdfs.com, my 15-hour audio masterclass. It talks about all of this. If you want one-stop shop, one structured education to get all these concepts in your head, and you can go over and over it. I mean, people listen to it multiple times. But I think the most from what I've been gathering the first 2 weeks of the MLB season is people are overthinking this. You're getting too granular. You know what I did yesterday? I just took a look and I decided what teams I'm going to play based on the ownership, based on projection versus ownership. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to play a bunch of the Marlins. I'm going to play a bunch of the Braves. I'm going to play a bunch of the Nationals, a bunch of the Diamondbacks, and then I'm playing 100 lineups. Mesh them together as best you can there. Give me 100 lineups. Then I see what comes out. And I'm getting 47% of Gleyber Torres in the shortstop spot. As like a one-off in a 4-3-1 stack. I cap him to 20%. I'm okay. Run it again. Like it's not rocket science. You see what the field's going to do. How can I exploit that? That's it. And then just build a bunch of lineups, and you could build God knows how many lineups. Oh, well, I'm only playing 3 lineups. Well, choose 3 of them. Well, what 3 should I choose? Probably doesn't matter. Probably doesn't. You could take 3 out of the 100 that I make, and they're all fine. Which 3 should I? Who knows? Who cares? Which 3? Take 1 of each stack. Take 3 of the same stack. Who knows? Probably similar expected values. So just whatever. That's why I like playing a lot of lineups in baseball. Because the differences between like 1,000 different lineups isn't dramatic. But I see a lot of people making mistakes in large field GPPs, not correlating, they're playing chalk together. And I'm like, well, why aren't I putting in 100 lineups here? That's what I do. But you don't have to overthink it. Most of the work is done for you. If you have RotoGrinders Premium and you have the Plate IQ projections, or you sign up for the BAT to get Derek Carty's projections, 95% of the work is done for you. Now you just have to see what do you think the field is going to do, what your opponents are going to do, the sizes of the contest and the strength of the contest you're in, and start building lineups. Start stacking and cracking and stacking. There you go, and see what happens, and treat your whole play over the course of 180 slates. There's one baseball slate. Can't judge anything by that. I'm playing 180 slates for the 2 or 3 times. I'm playing a full season for the 2 or 3 times that I could get to the top. And that's it. So most of the time, you're going to be sitting there going, I don't got that guy. Close the laptop, right? Faded the chalk stack, and they're good. 12 runs. Close the laptop. Faded the chalk pitcher up. He has 50 points. Close the laptop. That's perfectly fine. Christopher Donaldson, on the Theory of DFS podcast, you said projections don't matter because the variance is ridiculous. That's correct. If the batters only succeed at average 30% of the time, wouldn't you want the range of outcomes at 70%? You could change the range of outcomes to 70% on lineup HQ. You basically destroy the projections. So now what are you have to make the choices. I'm not letting the optimizer make the choices. Understand that. That's why I don't change the range of outcomes to 0, past 0. I've already made those choices. If I set the range of outcome to 70%, essentially the optimizer is just going to randomly give me stuff. Just randomly. Right? Most likely, yes. As the chalk will be slightly little, then the better projected will be slight, but it's going to be all over the place. If I put the range of outcomes at 70% and press the build button on 100 lineups, the first 100 and the second 100 aren't even going to look like one another. It's just going to be a random mess. if I just did that. But if I then go beforehand and go, I think this team's underowned, I think that team's underowned, I think this construction is going to be underowned, and then you go, okay, these are the types of lineups I want to build, and then I just tell the optimizer to do it. So what do I need randomness for? I've already decided what I'm going to do. I put it on 70% range of outcomes. That's not even going to change my lineups much. I've already excluded players. I've already said I'm not going to play this guy. That stack, I'm going under on that. I'll play a little bit of Oakland, but not that much. Like, so I don't need randomness. What is randomness? What's the purpose of it? I've already decided what I want to do. Ryan Baracco, is it worthwhile to play a 4-3-1 instead of a 4-4 in FanDuel? Yeah, sure. You should be. Why not? I play both. The larger the slates, I'll say this a million times, and people don't listen. So I know I'm gonna say this at least once a week, twice a week, 15 times a week on the show. The larger the slate, the more important correlation is. The smaller the slate, the less important it is. Now remember, listen to the words that I'm saying, and I say the words on purpose, specific words. The larger the slate, the more important correlation is. The smaller the slate, the less important correlation is. Not that it's not important, just that it's less important. Larger slate, it doesn't mean you have to correlate. It just means it's more important. Those are the terms you should be using. Not yeses and nos, not always and nevers. On a large slate, I'm more likely to build more 4-4 lineups, 4-3-1 lineups. So 5-game slate, I mean, 3-3-2, 3-2-1-1, you could do that. That's not poor strategy. You could also, on a smaller slate, on a 4-game slate, still do a 4-4. Yeah, you could still do that. That's perfectly fine also. Correlation is just less important. There's less teams that could put up 10 runs in a game, like have a team go off where the 4-man or the 5-man stack is good, puts up enough points. On a 4-game slate, there aren't as many teams. 12-game slate, there's 24 teams that could possibly do that. You may get 2 or 3 that put up a bunch of runs. So if 2 or 3 teams are going to be putting up 10 plus runs, more likely that 4 or 5 of those guys on those teams are going to be in the winning lineups. So it wouldn't be nice to get 2 of those together in a 4-4? Right, of course. Smaller slate, you'd have less teams that are likely to do that. That's it. Brett Booth, you're asking the same question I answered before. Did I over leverage? There's no over. You have to look at stack ownership. I don't know why I have to repeat this. I don't know why. You're telling me cumulative ownerships. I don't care. Cumulative ownership does not matter in DFS at all. At all. 0. Cumulative ownership does not matter at all. It's a blunt tool to compare 2 lineups together on one is going to be more owned or less owned. It doesn't compute leverage. It has nothing to do with relative value. So cumulative ownership in and of itself has no bearing. It should have no bearing whatsoever on your decisions. You could have played a cumulative ownership lineup that was 185 that had twice as much leverage as your lineup with 110. It could have had twice as much leverage and be cumulative. The ownership sum could have been, like you said, like winner forecast with 131 projected ownership. Well, number one, once you see the contest, who cares about the projected ownership? You want to care about the actual ownership. So that lineup could actually have 3 times more leverage than your lineup. You had a 138 with 110. Yeah, the 131 line could have had 3 times more leverage. But the cumulative ownership, yeah. So he could have had a 50% owned guy, a 50% owned guy, and then 4 guys at 1% owned as a stack. And the correlation matters in baseball. right? So 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%, and then Super Mega Chalk had 200 ownership sum, and his lineup would be like a million times more leverage than your lineup with a lower ownership sum of 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%. Right, because the cumulative ownership doesn't matter. If anything, the ownership product would matter. Multiply them together, if anything. In baseball, it's very hard to under or over. I don't even think in those terms. It's the highest variance team sport there is. It's primarily correlation. And because it's primarily correlation, you're not comparing individual player ownership. You're comparing stack ownership. Stack ownership, pitcher ownership, put lineups together. You're done. You're done. That's it. There's nothing else. You can't make lineups in MLB in like 6 minutes. You're doing something wrong. Like if you're building 20 lineups or something, lineup HQ, if you're spending more than 10 minutes doing it, I don't know what you'd be doing. You're building 20 line. I don't even know what you'd be doing. What are you doing? Dude, I built 100 lineups and I many days I'm 10 minutes. How much can it take? You make your thinking about what decisions you make before you touch the tool. I've already done that. So I've already looked. Okay, this construction, this lineup. Okay, less people are going to play that because of this. And then once you decide, all you're doing is programming a tool. I'm putting in the stack percentages, right? I'm pressing the button. Then seeing what comes out and say, oh, why am I getting? Do I want to play Chuck Gleyber Torres as a one-off shortstop in all these 4-3-1 lineups? No, I don't. So how many Yankee stacks do I have? I've got 12 of them. 12%. So I'll put Gleyber Torres down to 12% to make sure that he kind of jams into the stacks and I don't play him as a one-off. Done. To press the button again. And then you run it and then you see what happens. Oh, I'm getting Josh Van Meter as a one-off now in like 30% of my lineups. Do I want that? So I see how many stacks do I have of the Diamondbacks? Oh, I got 18 stacks of the Diamondbacks. Now I could just click the button, the only in stacks button, and just make sure that Josh Van Meter is only in stacks. So I could do that. I click on the button, only in stacks, and then run it again. Then I look and I go, okay, nothing like pops out. Nothing is like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. And then I upload it. Then I export, then copy and paste, and there you go. You're done. Done. That's it. The projections are there. They're already done for you. Like anything else that you're, I don't have to research for baseball. The projections are there. I just have to see what's the field going to do. How many people are going to be playing Oakland today? Because sometimes the highest owned teams aren't owned enough, right? Sometimes you say, everyone's going to play this team. Like maybe they should be playing more of it. Sometimes we get those in Dodgers or something or the Coors game. It's like, people are fading Coors because it's Coors, right? Because everyone plays stacked Coors. Maybe that day the Coors is the most popular, combination, but it's still underowned. I look and I go, actually, there's positive leverage even playing Coors. Maybe I double down on it. Those are decisions I'm making before lineup HQ. But once you make those decisions and then you go to lineup HQ, it's baseball. Draftkings, you're playing 5-man stacks. FanDuel, you're playing 4-man stacks. What's so complicated? Plug them in, right? I want to play this team, that team, this team, that team, that team. Fucking run it. It's not that complicated. Ryan Baracco, since there's so much variance in batter scores, wouldn't playing the highest projected, highest upside pitcher make the most sense? Because low-priced bats could easily be up. Yes. You can see that's exactly what we do. I mean, take a look at these sharp players. 150 max. Playing chalk pitchers. Playing the highest projected pitcher combination on DraftKings was Glasnow and Peralta. Well, that's what pretty much everyone did. Right? Pitchers are less variant. And especially on a large slate, there's so many ways to get different with bats. So yes, That's why I showed this in Results DB. Sharp players have no problem jamming in the pitchers, the highest projected pitchers. But you can see here, no one's jamming in 70% of Gleyber Torres. No one's going to say, "Oh, I'm going to hinge my entire all 150 lineups on Kyle Tucker." Like, no one's doing that. So yes, you'd be correct. I play the highest projected pitchers, especially at FanDuel. You only get one. I mean, yeah, that doesn't mean the highest price pitchers. I'm just high projected ones. Sometimes cheaper pitchers. Freddie Peralta projected well. Glasnow projected better than Cole and Greinke for sure. So I'm just going to jam those guys, especially if I'm getting different. If I'm playing a Marlins stack, why do I need to get different a pitcher anymore? Playing a Diamondback stack, why do I have to get different a pitcher? But Nationals, I don't have to get. Just give me the best two pitchers. There you go. Done. I don't need any more leverage. I'm done. Okie doke. Hope you guys learned something. We didn't really talk about today's slate. I don't even know what the hell is going on today. What is going on today? Oh, we got good pitchers today. We got Max Fried. Why is Max Fried so cheap against the Marlins? Is he going to be the de facto SP2? Well, Woodruff's cheap. Bauer. So we're going to be playing Bauer. According to the back, you play Bauer over Bieber, right? It's Strasburg. Yeah, we got good pitchers today. Got good pitchers today. How about on FanDuel? What are we doing on FanDuel on pitcher? This is the first time I'm even checking it out. Okay, I'm probably playing Bauer also because it's against Colorado, outside of Colorado, and they're horrible. Okay. But it's Trevor Bauer. You never know. So what are we doing here? I can take a look. Let's take a look. What are we doing? Oh, it looks like it looks like a mess of crap. You could play Bauer and Bieber together. Yeah, oh, come on. Can DraftKings price these guys up? We get what? There should be no batters that are in the $2,000 range. Like the minimum price should be $3,000 at minimum, if not $3,500. We were getting guys to they're batting fourth, $2,200 on DraftKings. FanDuel's a different story. That's the reason you could play Bieber and Bauer together because, yeah, there's a way to get them. There's a way to get both of them. And there's a way to get me. You can get me at thetheoryofdfs.com if you want to learn about all these concepts. 15-hour audio DFS masterclass. Pick it up. Theoryofdfs.com. But if you got questions, I'm here. I'll be here all the time, right? That's the purpose of this show. We do some review. We answer some questions. We talk about today's slate, possibly, right? Go over some tools, right? Metrics. I yell at some people, for stupid questions. Yeah, once in a while I do that. Do a bunch of stuff. That's what we do here in the morning. I'm trying to help you. Trying to help you guys out. So get the Theory of DFS. Come join our RotoGrinders Premium. Click the link in the description to get $10 off your first month. And then I'll see you tomorrow because I'm here. I'm here every weekday, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Here on YouTube for the DFS pregame show, brought to you by RotoGrinders.com.